A very warm welcome back to your latest industry recap. The Airbus A350F has been delayed at another company. Virgin Atlantic has returned to a country after a long absence, and an airline is struggling. Want to begin there with Air Seoul preparing for an integration into Jin Air, facing some of its biggest struggles as essentially debts balloon and the company fails to control its core expenses. The South Korean carrier had been looking to expand its business in recent times in a bid to really align with demand that was being witnessed, and it is forecasting this for the future. However, while there have been increases in sales, their employee base and other things improving, the ability to also control the expenses that come with all of this has failed on several occasions. Air Seoul now finds itself in a position where the debts are spiraling, and finding a way to navigate these turbulent times has been an incredible challenge. Air Seoul's concern surrounds this debt, which is growing. Working through the challenges has already been determined as well to be essential for the brand's survival and eventual integration into Jin Air. Looking ahead, the South Korean industry, as you may know, is expected to change quite considerably. Korean Air's purchase of Asiana Airlines has definitely changed the outlook for many established carriers, and consolidation is expected to occur. Air Seoul, however, faces many uncertainties even when predicting its own future. Its economic conditions continue to evolve, which makes actually understanding shifts in market share, currency, and more a challenge. Air Seoul is still relatively new to our industry, founded in the 2010s as part of Asiana Airlines' attempts to enter the low-cost international and domestic market. Short-haul operations were a core focus. However, this was to be a heavily contested space, and despite Asiana Airlines leading the show, the airline really struggled to make its mark. Then when you factor in the arrival of the global pandemic, well, it came at a time for Air Seoul, like many, where inroads were at that point attempting to be made to stabilize the business. According to local South Korean media, this is also when poor management helped really not establish a fundamental structure. So when you have a pandemic hit and all the relevant economic uncertainties, well, the situation at Air Seoul very quickly spiraled, and there was a generalized lack of confidence that the airline was actually stabilizing itself for the long-term future. Air Seoul is not the only airline experiencing some struggles in this space, with Jin Air and Air Busan also quoted at facing some financial challenges that need to improve, but really it is Air Seoul that has had the most attention. The company is, to its credit, attempting to stabilize by implementing new management and other cost reduction measures through restructuring, aiming to operate daily within its means, but finding a balance is absolutely essential. Air Seoul cannot focus too heavily on the development of its business if it, say, loses focus of being profitable. Over to the next story, where Virgin Atlantic has returned to Canada for the first time in over a decade with the relaunch of service to Toronto Pearson International Airport. The route will connect London Heathrow with Toronto Pearson in a bid to offer greater connectivity to North America. According to the company, Toronto is known as the capital of Canada from a financial and tourism standpoint. Therefore, it is a perfect place to really recommence flying towards in the country. The Boeing 787-9 Dreamliner will operate the daily service, with a significant number of flights from the beginning of recommencement. In fact, 165,000 customers will be transported per annum alongside 20 tons of cargo. It is a fantastic now service offering. Toronto Pearson really now forms an integral part of the airline's transatlantic network, which continues to grow in presence and importance. In the airline's most recent financial reports, which finally indicated a profit after years of struggle, the company highlighted how nearly a third of its revenues came directly from the United States. These flights to Toronto aim to bring traffic between the two popular cities, inbound and outbound, and to give Canadians access to the markets. Virgin Atlantic highlights how through London Heathrow, seamless one-stop connections can be achieved to multiple destinations in India, South Africa, and the Middle East, thanks to the well-established codeshare partnerships it has. These also codeshare partnerships are highlighted further for customers that are travelling to Canada, with expanded relations with WestJet, enabling seamless onward connectivity to not just more domestic cities within Canada, but also if you are looking at trans-border connectivity. Virgin Atlantic has provided some fun facts about the route, including your aircraft configuration, timings, and such, so why not go over those? With the 787-9 to operate service, this jet is configured to seat 31 in upper class, 35 in premium economy, and 192 in standard economy. The 787 has played an integral role in really driving change across the business, notably improving its day-to-day operations and achieving greater efficiency across the board. Over to the final story, where Silkway West has become the latest freight operator, seemingly adding a delay to the acquisition efforts of its A350 freighter. Cargofax's reporting indicates that the A350F will likely enter service in the fourth quarter of 2027 at the earliest. However, given the persistent unknowns surrounding the approval of this next generation freighter, the risk is that this very much could extend into 2028, and you'd imagine that would remain highly likely. Silkway West Airlines confirmed its order for the A350F in 2022, purchasing 2 units for the future freight needs. The Baku-based company said the freighters would aid modernization efforts long into the future. However, given an inability to take these planes on now as intended, the company will be forced to extend the life of its 747F further than initially expected as well. While the 747F has absolutely been a workhorse, the Airbus widebody freighter type is really seen as the new era, and naturally the plane they want to replace the 747F. The quicker the jet enters service, well, the better it is for Silkway West, which is trying to evolve rather than continuously relying on less efficient planes. Many upcoming jet operators have been delaying their A350F following Airbus's recent confirmation that its forthcoming game-changing A350F will be delayed until mid-2027. Following reporting that was led by Reuters, speculation emerged surrounding a prospective delay, but it hardly came as a shock even after the plane maker confirmed such a thing, with Air France-KLM coming out in the last 12 months and very much publicly discussing their thoughts on the progress of the program and their belief that they would simply not be able to take on the plane as initially intended. Airbus previously outlined a 2026 expected year for the first delivery of the 350F and even targeted a first flight sometime in the back end of this year. However, achieving these established timelines has been deemed impossible, mainly because Airbus faces consistent supply chain constraints and many other internal challenges and that it is trying to work through. While there have been improvements across the business, this hasn't necessarily been enough to say immediately change the direction of the new freighter completely or allow timelines to be met adequately. The A350F has already amassed over 50 orders, the plane maker confirming this figure is now at 63, and many more customers are currently weighing up their options and whether the as designated A350-1000F will be the desired choice. For Airbus, well, the jet represents a true attempt to really gain valuable market share in the freighter scene, which it has arguably struggled to gain a grip on, and it will compete with the 777-8F, the two plane makers really going head-to-head to attract maximum market share. However, delays to both programs have led to the companies adjusting their timelines to the frustration of their customers, but also the realization that not all that much can be done. It's simply a waiting game. Keen to hear your take down below in the comments. Thanks a lot for your support, and I'll see you tomorrow for your next industry recap.
And we'll fly.